Do you want to take a
One of
stand now and say that Matt Fitzpatrick is going to win all three of the rest of the majors?
I mean, until he doesn't, it's not impossible.
Welcome to Center Cup. I'm Kyle Muserino here as always with Will Neary and Nick Newmeyer. And we've got a recap Monday today. Plenty of golf to talk about, including our fellow Wildcat Matt Fitzpatrick winning the RBC Heritage. But let's start with LIV. A ton going on over the weekend, back and forth. Some great articles coming out, great reporting being done there. Nick, start us off here with some of the latest news and what's going on.
So basically, where we left off on this podcast was that we had found out that Liv was going through a serious funding issue, and that there were reports that the Public Investment Fund of Saudi Arabia was looking to divert funds away from Liv and redirect them towards the war in Iran. I think whether or not that was the truth or just using it as a cop out to get away from a truly terrible product. That remains to be seen. But there were a variety of reports saying that, Liv could have pulled the plug as early as Thursday, and that they could have folded, that they could have obviously. I think the important thing to sort of notice as well was that Live the official, like there were a lot of, off the record sources that went to The Athletic, that went to a bunch of different outlets. None of them wanted to go by name, but there were a lot of different outlets that were talking about just sort of the viability of the league and whether or not it could continue. And the general consensus was that it would be funded through 2026, and after that it was not nothing was guaranteed after that. I do think the one interesting thing I want to bring up before we get into our discussion was that I forget who said it. I know I sent this to the group chat. There was talk in 2020 about whether there was a group of golf reporters that broke the news that the Open Championship was going to be canceled due to COVID. And then, the Open or the RNA came out and said, this is not factual. Like, we are monitoring the situation. There are no plans to cancel it. And then a week later, they announced that they were canceling it. And sort of like, that is the one thing that organizations hate, is when other people break their news. They like to be the ones to control the narrative. And so I think a lot of this is, Live has always been just sort of smoke and mirrors. It has always been just a lot of like loud information meant to distract from sort of some of the other glaring issues. And so I personally would take anything that they are saying, at least from official standpoints, with a grain of salt. But as of now, we're still living and breathing, and they did play Mexico, albeit with some power outage issues and some just overall really weird vibes. But as of now, Live is still on the table for the foreseeable future.
Yeah, I think I know we should take things with a grain of salt. I do think the reporting has been substantial enough to this point that I think it's very likely that the truth is that they are probably solidly funded through 2026. Although, PIF can that's up to PIF, and PIF can go back and forth on that with the Public Investment Fund. But it does seem to me like that's likely going to be the case. I think I was honestly, I mean, so a lot of the most recent reporting is centered around, at least what I've read, is an article by Brody Miller, who attended. He's a reporter for the Athletic. Attended LIV Golf Mexico City. Kind of, was a really good description of that like weird confusion slash things still going on slash optimism weirdly that he saw down at LIV. And again, I think what's important, like you said, Nick, is that that optimism is tough to really gauge if we're putting on a brave face and, trying to do the thing where, hey, if I act like everything's all right, then everything's all right. Right. Like just like kind of doing that. But at the same time, it is surprising is the wrong word because I guess that's how I would expect people to act, or especially, Scott O'Neill, the CEO of Live Golf, to act in that situation. But yeah, it basically seems like they're going to take as opposed to, closing up shop or pivoting, they're just going to try to raise a bunch of money, figure out ways to do it if PIF decides not to fund them in the future. It seems like their next step is just going to be selling. I think, as Brody Miller said, like selling equity stakes in the teams, increasing sponsorship revenue, continuing to put on a worldwide golf schedule. They highlighted a lot about how year over year increases in ticket sales, in hospitality, in sponsorship revenues, et cetera, et cetera. I believe they said an 100% increase in revenues, which is top line, obviously, before you take out any of the actual costs of what it takes to run live. But um, top line increased 100% year over year in 2025. I think the issue is that Scott O'Neill himself told the Financial Times in February that the league was 5 to 10 years away from turning a profit. And I think the real issue that Brody Miller highlighted really well is that when you take away PIF, you no longer, it's very unlikely that you have 5 to 10 years to turn a profit. Like
Right.
investors are not, you don't have a bottomless well of money that's like pretty unique to PIF. Obviously, there are other people that have bottomless wells of money, but when you're funding a golf tour that spends, I believe it was cited as over $500 million, maybe even way more, honestly. I think it was $500 million in the UK in 2025, I believe is what Brody Miller said. So when you're spending that much money, there's not that many options for funding, and there's definitely not that many options that can sustain that funding without turning a profit for 5 years, let alone 10. So I think that's going to be the issue where if they don't decide to pivot, closing up shop is not something I imagine they're really even considering at this point, just because it would be pretty bad business to just immediately turn that way. But to
Right.
not pivot to some other structure is a bit surprising, just because if you don't have PIF, if you don't have a bottomless fund of billions and billions and billions of dollars, that doesn't expect you to turn a profit, I don't know how you survive with like, private equity funding. I know there's a lot of money in private equity outside of PIF as well, but 500, they're not going to be willing to take $750 million losses every single year. Like that's just
No.
not
And
a
I
feasible
think,
thing.
when it comes to, I'm not surprised at the lack of transparency from Liv. I think, the number one thing is if there's rumors of going under, I definitely don't think an organization is going to be, you're obviously looking to retain your business model, you're looking to keep your
Yeah.
stars. They're not going to be like waving a white flag, be like, "Hey, we're going under." Like, I definitely don't think that I don't blame them for that in a sense. I think, taking this to Mexico City, um, we've already touched on sort of like the weird atmosphere from it, but I think the one thing that really struck me was that what Brody Miller said was that by the time they had made the decision to go down to Mexico and just, get boots on the ground, figure out what's going on, it was too late to apply for a credential. So he bought a ticket for Thursday, and then they had reached out to Liv, and he was able to get a credential on Friday. And so he's walking around on Friday, and then a security guard comes up to him and shows him like a picture, or he shows him like a group thread with a screenshot of Brody Miller's headshot from The Athletic. And Brody Miller was like, was there a security was there a security check put on me on Thursday? Like what, like an alert or something like that? And the guard said yes, there was. That they found out that he was on the premises and that they had sent a memo to security to keep an eye on him. And then when he showed him his credential, the guard was reportedly on the phone saying like, "Oh, he's good now." And then Brody Miller asked Liv to confirm whether this had happened or not, and they denied it. And to me, the first thing that I thought of when I heard this was when Alan Shipnuck went to LIV Golf London for the inaugural event and was accosted by security guards in the wake of the book he wrote on Phil Mickelson. And he sent a text to Greg Norman and said, "Hey, your goons were harassing me today." And Greg Norman said, "This is the first time hearing of this. I know nothing about this. Thank you for telling me." Now Alan Shipnuck goes, that's crazy. Here's a picture of you in the background while your goons are harassing me. Like, completely called him out there. And so to me, that kind of, this is obviously not the first time that Liv has looked to intimidate journalists at their events, clearly. And so to me, that was already odd, where um, I think, if you have something to hide, that's when you do that. Obviously, Saudi Arabia, great reputation for treatment of journalists, but that it almost seems like, obviously there's that front of just sort of confidence trying to project a long-term future, but just the overall that was the tone of his article, was just the overall mystery of the event. And I feel like that is something that really adds to that.
Yeah, I'm curious what you guys think. If like I wouldn't, I feel like I have less of a problem with this than maybe I should. It depends on how you view it, because I think intimidation is not the way I view it. I don't view this as similar, or I view it as similar to what happened to Alan Shipnuck, but from the what Brody Miller wrote about the atmosphere there, it feels what he, I don't have the exact quote, but it was basically insinuating that, you know, immediately after these reports started coming out, like Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, things were really frantic and really frenetic trying to figure out what the hell was going on and where Liv was going to go from here. And I think that was the case in in offices of Liv, and also, in the reporting world and in the golf world. Nobody really knew it was coming. Um, so I think what my question would be, or where I differentiate it, I guess, is that I can sort of understand them wanting to know, like, if the security checks put on him to be like, make sure he doesn't do any reporting, then I'm like, okay, that's not great. Like, we need to, that's obviously, that's bordering on the intimidation that you're talking about. If the security check is just like, we need to keep an eye on this guy, make sure we know what he's doing and what type of information he's gathering, it's not great. It's a little dirty. It's a little, like backroom dealing type stuff, but it's also not, I wouldn't consider that unexpected, to be honest, when a journalist is coming, to your event with all this news going on that, are not likely to paint you in the best light necessarily. Not that that is Brody Miller's intention at all, but just because that's unfortunately the reality of the tour, is that they're not going to get painted in the best light.
Right.
But I think that's kind of where I differentiate it. I'm curious to hear what you guys think. If you think that's like, is that a really dirty play by Liv? I kind of don't find that necessarily unexpected.
I mean, Kyle, I've done a lot of talking. You take this one.
Yeah, I don't know if it's a dirty play. It's certainly not a great look. I mean,
No.
they didn't deny him a credential for Friday and Saturday, so he got the
Yeah.
credential.
Right.
He's good now.
Whatever happened on Thursday, whether they were just so frantic trying to, kind of put everything back together from everything that had come out earlier in the week. It's tough to say. But I'm sure Liv is also trying to think, how did this guy get this information? They might still be trying to root out where most of this came from, because obviously some of this is pretty classified info. Um, but in terms of whether it's dirty or not, yeah, I mean it's not great, but the denial is also odd because it's tough to deny that when you have a security guard coming up to you and showing you his picture and being
Yeah, like
like,
at that
Right.
point, let's just say like we wanted to keep an eye on you. I honestly don't think that
Yeah.
would have been that horrific a thing to say. But you're right. It is also important to note that this was Thursday was in the wake of the initial report that came out from the Athletic with Gabby Herzig, Brendan Quinn, Brody Miller, and Adam Crafton, regarding like the initial breaking news about the future in question with Saudi Arabia's PIF fund considering to pull funding. So I'm sure, like you said, Kyle, there was a lot of sources in that, like Nick mentioned, all decided to remain nameless. Nobody was willing to go on record. No Live officials were willing to go on record against Live, or in the fact that they were leaking some of this information. So I'm sure that is some of the frantic reaction. And then like, okay, how are they getting this? Who is he talking to? Type of reaction kind
I
of makes a little
also
sense to me.
I also wonder, if they're sending that out to like security guards at checkpoints, it's not like they're having those security guards being like, okay, if you see this guy talking, make note of who he's talking to, kind of thing. It doesn't seem like it's that elaborate. And honestly,
Tackle him
yeah,
on site.
exactly. And sources are like, you get more skeeved out. Like you hear NFL insiders talk about this. It's like if I'm at a game and one of my sources is a scout or a coach on a team, and we're on the game on the field pregame, guess who I'm probably not going to be talking to then? People who are my sources. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I
right.
wonder if there's like some of that, at a golf event more than any other sporting event. It's so spread out. There's so many different people involved. Um, so I think it's just interesting to think about for sure.
And I think, the one thing that, maybe bugs me about this more than it should was just sort of the wording of how he described the encounter was that like the security guard didn't just come up to him and say like, "Hey, I got your picture." He, said he showed him the company chat. So I'm quoting right now. He pulled out his phone and showed me a company chat with a large photo of the athletic headshot and said I needed to come with him. I asked if there was some sort of security alert sent out on me, and he said yes, there was on Thursday. I don't know how they even knew I was on the property Thursday, but I certainly wasn't sneaking, as my goal was to primarily run into a live official and talk. I explained I was given a credential that morning, which greatly surprised him. He made 2 calls to ask, and I overheard him say, "Oh, he's okay now," before he let me go. So I don't know if detained is the right word, but he was
I
certainly
think detained is the wrong word.
no, but like
I'm picturing it as like the security guard on the phone just being like, "Hey, hold on one second. Like, I just stay there, don't move. Like, I need to make this call." Like,
yeah, and
maybe
Also,
I'm
like,
underthinking it. Maybe you're overthinking it.
I
I don't
probably
know.
am. But to me, like that whole encounter just seemed a little odd, and the fact that, basically had to get cleared by the security guard before he can go again. Like it seemed really, if not anything else, like as we said, it's fishy, just the way and
I
especially the
don't,
denial too.
yeah, I mean, I get that. I also don't get I don't know how they knew I was there. Like, if you alerted everybody saying you were going to come and try and you just didn't hear back or didn't get a credential, I mean, it's not that surprising you showed up. Like, that wasn't like some dark arts that they figured out he was there on Thursday,
Right. Yeah, that
honestly.
is true.
I
Yeah,
think that might be playing into the story a little bit. But yeah, I wouldn't. It's just not a good look. I'll chalk it up to that, I would say, for
yeah.
Liv. But
I agree.
what good looks has Liv had over
Yeah, I
4
think that's part of
years?
it too. Is my expectations are pretty low
Yeah.
for their general
This is
dealings that
true. Yeah.
I'm not shocked by a security guard kind of,
Well, so
you
then
know.
what do we make about, Brian Rolapp and Liv CEO Scott O'Neill so reportedly meeting at Augusta? You have reports of Bryson and his team meeting with PGA
Well,
Tour
yeah,
and all that
that's
stuff. You've
that's
got
kind of where
Rolapp
I
on McAfee just a couple hours ago saying, you know, trepidatiously talking about a return program for some of these Liv guys who might be looking. Like, there's just a lot going on.
I think where I want to take it is probably the Bryson thing and not Bryson specific, but expand on that. Like I think the risk that that Live Golf has now is that uncertainty is just not. It leads to uncertainty opens the door for a lot of people and events to make their own decisions and leave, essentially. I think like for example, I don't necessarily know what the status is on this, but Live Golf Louisiana, which is an event coming up on the Live Golf schedule, said that they, separate, like in the wake of the events that happened early last week, that they needed to meet and have, quote, have a candid conversation about where the event stands. Um, it basically and then the report that Bryson at the Masters, before these reports even came out, that PIF was considering pulling funding, had meetings separately to talk about what moves he might make should he decide to theoretically leave Live. These issues, this uncertainty with its future, the fact that they don't necessarily have fixed funding beyond this year, especially for a guy like Bryson who's demanding $500 million to re-sign with Liv. Where the
Right.
hell is that money coming from now? What smart private equity firm is going to say, okay, you know what? Yeah, smart investment here, 500 million to Bryson. Bryson brings in a ton of business for Liv. He is like the only draw that they've got pretty much at this point. It's not $500 million,
No,
like
not at
that
all.
$500 million price tag is based on the fact that there is unlimited money to be given out here.
Well, that
Um,
was the whole reason they got everybody was the
yeah,
unlimited money. So now if you're
exactly.
worried about the funding, what is there?
Yeah. So if Bryson's now walking into these meetings being like, no, I need $500, and they're like, best I can do is 40, like, which
And
is,
can
a made up number, but
in the article, in Brody's article, it says, according to golf industry sources, DeChambeau and his team spent part of Masters Week meeting with organizations to discuss possible options if he chose to leave golf, live. What does meeting with organizations
yeah,
mean?
who
Does
were
it
the
get any
That is
more vague
organizations?
interesting.
than that? That's just the most
He's
interesting phrasing I've ever. Meeting
it's
with
Twitch.
organizations.
He's meeting with Twitch.
Yeah, I mean, what does
Like
that even mean?
Because the
that
article,
means, yeah.
it did denote that, they said that he was not opposed to only playing the four majors and being a full-time YouTuber as well. So maybe he's striking a deal with Good, who knows? But um, that's really you have to think, obviously, maybe I don't think anybody was confident enough to go on the record and say, but you have to think that one of those organizations was the PGA Tour.
Yeah. Just what other ones
It
could it
has to
be?
be. Why else would they not name it? It has to be PGA Tour officials. I
What
don't get
about
why.
TGL? Full time commit to TGL? The world
I
long drive champion? Maybe he's just like, you know
Ooh,
what, screw it.
yeah.
I'm going into the long driving world
I remember when
exclusively.
I got a video of him on my For You page do when he was in the long drive championship, and
Yeah.
that was a vibe. That was really cool when he did that. But there was talks about, on the practice screen,
Yeah.
he was in a very long discussion with John Rahm, and he was described as sort of talking with his hands and um, sort of leading the conversation, and Rahm was just sort of listening intently and asking questions where he could. And so
It sounds like a debriefing of a meeting he just had
basically,
with
yeah.
Yeah.
organizations.
Yeah. Yeah,
And
exactly.
so it really sounds like there's more information than we know at the moment, and it sounds like it really sounds like there's a lot of deflections. I know Rom and Sergio Garcia sort of chalked it up to rumors. I know the live broadcasters as well just sort of attacked the lack of named sources and just kind of talked about like baseless reporting and rumors as well. So it sounds like there's a lot of deflection right now, but
I
I
don't know
think
what else you do if you're those
yeah,
people. You're
exactly.
employed by Live. That's how you get paid. You're not going to come out and be like, "Yep, we're screwed. It's over.
Yeah.
Like, we're done." Don't know
Yeah.
when this is officially done, but it's the cookie is crumbling as we speak.
I'm curious, like what I know somewhere right now, roll up after, I know he's on McAfee, but he's over the weekend, I'm sure there was a lot of thinking about what a potential return plan could look like if Live collapses. How do you integrate guys? Who do you integrate? What do you do? And I know that's been like a big online discourse too. So I'm curious to hear from you guys. Like my initial thought is that I think there's more than just, the initial extension that he offered or the olive branch he offered to Brooks, Cam Smith, John Rahm, and who am I forgetting? The fourth. How am I forgetting somebody? The other, whatever.
Patrick Reed.
Was Patrick Reed part? No, because he had to leave separately. He left on his own to go back to
Oh no, yeah,
DP
not a
World
major
Tour.
champion. Yeah, no, I think it was just the four of them then. It was just Rom, Bryson, Koepka, and Cam Smith.
Bryson, that's who I was forgetting. Bryson, Jesus, we were just talking about him too much. He slipped my mind. Um, but yeah, so those four guys, I think I'd be partial to extending the offer to more than just those four. I think like there are other guys, especially some of the younger guys that are like that carry some weight to me. Um, there are good golfers, but I don't think you can't extend it to a ton of people. I think a lot of people you have to just kind of be like, I'm sorry, like you got to go to PGA Tour Americas or Q School or something and figure
Yeah,
this out.
I'm not giving an
Um,
exemption to Michael Lasasso or anybody like
no,
that.
don't, no, no, no. No, I mean more like the Tom McKibbins of the world, and but even him is probably too low. I don't know. There's a couple guys in that just below that rung of if P Reed were still there, like Patrick Reed is the type of guy I'm
Yeah,
thinking of. Like,
I
I
would
mean, I'm
say like you move heaven and earth you give Bryson whatever he wants to get back on the PGA Tour. I think that is priority number one. If you can get John Rahm, I think that's a good result too. But when it comes to guys like Joaquin Neiman, Tyrrell Hatton, like those guys, Let them serve out their suspensions and play on the DP World Tour. Like,
I'm curious, Nick. That was a very different like move heaven and earth to get Bryson DeChambeau and John Rahm as like an added bonus. Is it that big a difference between the two of them, you think?
I think, to me, when Rom first signed with Liv, I thought that was as close as you can get to like a needle mover. Like to me, that I thought Rom going because like Rom was I believe the number two golfer in the world at the time. I think that was
Hmm.
sort of the big move. And then over the years, we've seen Rom has not been like Rom has not carried the audience, at least in America. He has not carried the audience and the overall attention and also the performance, quite frankly, to be the needle mover on Live. And so to me, he sounds like, like we mentioned, if you look at what happened at the U.S. Open and Bryson winning, and how much that carried, how much attention that gave to both himself and to Liv as well. And so I personally feel that, we've mentioned that if Liv loses Bryson, they're dead in the water. And but if they lose John Rahm, like I wouldn't say they're dead in the water. And so I think,
No, but I think he's a pull for the PGA Tour. Like I think
well,
he's
he
absolutely
absolutely
up
is.
there with Bryson. Like in terms of who you need as the PGA Tour to get back, who you're like looking at when looking at Live. I think the Bryson and John Rahm are in their own tier by themselves,
Agreed.
but I don't think there's that much difference between Bryson and John Rahm, if that makes sense. Like I think he maybe isn't that much of a pull for Live because he's been pretty crappy, but I think he still holds a ton of weight for PGA Tour fans.
I would
Like
agree
I think
there, and I
I think
would
when you think like
say,
you said when he left, I was he was number two when he left. But I think when he left, like the first year of it, it really felt like we were like, oh my God, like we've been robbed of John Rahm versus Scotty Scheffler for like the foreseeable future. And it wasn't like we've been robbed of Bryson DeChambeau versus Scotty Scheffler. The
right.
conversation was John Rahm at that point. I know things have changed and he hasn't played well, but I still think he's maybe just as much of a pull for the PGA Tour specifically to get back. I know Bryson has the youth a lot more than John Rahm does. And, if you just counted purely number of fans, Bryson wins that by a mile. But I think in terms of if you're Brian Rolap, who you're like, we need back, I think John Rahm is pretty much right up there.
Yeah, I'd say like my point in saying that was, or like the move heaven and earth is if you're faced with a choice of the two, you get Bryson first, and then if you can get Rom, like if you get one of the two, I'd say you're in good hands. But if I'm Brian Rolap, I my priority is to get Bryson DeChambeau over John Rahm.
I think that's
I
right. I just don't think it's that big a margin.
I
Yeah,
get
I,
what
I
you're
agree
saying.
there.
I just think like Bryson's appeal is like the YouTube golf thing. The live ratings are still not good. It's not like you have people who are fans of Bryson on YouTube being like, "Oh, I'm going to watch live golf now so I can watch Bryson." Like it's really not working like that. I wonder how much it affects like the crowds they get at the actual tournaments because that seems like kind of where they excel over everything else is the crowds they get at tournaments that looks lively. The ratings just haven't been good ever really.
I think the crowds are really just the fact that like they're the thing that Liv does really, really well is goes to places that don't otherwise get golf, like don't
Yeah.
Right.
otherwise have significant tournaments. That's what we saw in Australia, South Africa, Mexico City, even like, reports were that the fans were there and they were having a good time, So
Yep. And that's why
I
you
don't
need
even
the
know if
Brysons or the
Bryson,
Roms.
yeah, but I don't even know if like I would say, I mean, as the tour exists, like continues to exist, I think that's true. I don't like how many extra fans do you think Bryson specifically being in Mexico City is pulling from Mexico City to that event? I kind of think a lot of it is just like golf is coming here. Like I'm gonna go watch golf.
Yeah, I do kind of agree with that actually. I think I definitely don't think the YouTube fans really translate over to live ratings. Otherwise, the live ratings would be considerably better than they are. But
I think they'd
I,
probably translate better to the PGA Tour though. Live is also at midnight most of the time.
that is
So
Exactly.
it's
true.
like
Yeah,
so like
that's probably why the PGA Tour doesn't go to those
yeah.
places. Like
These kids have school in the morning.
When the Zozo used to be played in Japan, that was essentially a lost week for the PGA Tour because nobody was
Yeah.
watching. Even like If you want to take it a step further and say Hawaii was not a good showing for the PGA Tour from a rating standpoint, just because of the time difference.
It's a lot of why we might not be back.
Exactly.
And but that's just it just raises like the live questions in a more general sense. Like it's just not sustainable. Like
And it never
people just
was.
no, it never was. You just don't, so much of golf is like the historical backdrop of it. And, it just takes so long to establish that. It doesn't matter who you have if you have a few of the top guys. Like you're not going to be pulling huge ratings. And like all sports, the most money comes from these television contracts. That's what we've seen especially over the last like 10, 20 years. It's like they make a majority, aside from sponsorship, of course, but those come from the advertisements you get from the television contracts. And if your ratings stink, it's just not sustainable. I don't
Well,
know how
that's
they survive.
was Brody Miller mentioned it that like golf always has, at least in the modern era, golf has existed on TV contracts. And PIF, or sorry, not PIF, Live is like directly just saying like, no, we're gonna go totally against that and not be reliant on that, which is an impossibility when you don't have a bottomless pit of PIF money funding you. Like you can't just, well, I mean, even if I think about the Zozo, like yes, it was a dead week for the PGA Tour, but like the fans in Japan are also very, very present. Like there are a lot of golf fans in Japan, and they ride for their guys. Like Japanese fans are obsessed with Hideki Matsuyama. Ryo Satsune has a great following already. Like, and there's a little bit. I mean, maybe I'm. And that's probably not fair. I think the only way that like these global events work for the PGA Tour is if you go to Australia and like all of Australia watches, or you go to South Africa and like the viewership extends beyond South Africa and goes like obviously the time zones are difficult, but Europe, like you get a lot of viewers in Europe when you go over to South Africa in theory because the time zones are similar. Things like that are like the only way to make it sustainable, is to find ways to get the viewership, but you just won't be able to compete with the viewership you get when you're playing an event in the US just because so many people tune in.
I have a theory, and I think this is a good place to sort of curb our live discussion and get towards some of the other golf events this week. But I'll end on this theory that it all just kind of like came together in my mind. I don't think Live was ever meant to be sustainable. I think Live was always meant to be a 5 to 10 year product. Because if you look at what Phil Mickelson was saying when he first spearheaded the Live campaign. And obviously, because of the Shipnuck story, like his words kind of overshadowed the story and sort of created a different narrative that sort of led to a bit of a PR disaster for Live in the early stages. But what he said was that the reason he's doing this is because he sees this as an opportunity to change the professional golf landscape and change the way things work for the foreseeable future. And if you look at what Rolap said on McAfee today, he said that one of the benefits of live, or just benefits of sport in general, is I think he described um, live to the PGA as what the AFL did for the NFL in terms of the competition between leagues allowed the league to sort of recognize what they were doing poorly and sort of change what happened. So like I would 100% equivocally say that the PGA Tour is in a better spot than it was before the dawn of Live. And so my theory is that Live was basically a means to an end to improve the PGA Tour, and then all the guys would come back and, deal with or like reap the added benefits of what they, in a sense, caused.
I think that's been the result. I think you're giving Liv way too much credit, to be honest. I think you're giving specifically Gary Player way too much credit. But like I think when Liv was founded, I like it, this is I feel like I'm gonna sound a lot meaner than I mean to be here. To me, Liv, like it reminds me of like a petulant toddler is like kind of what like in the way that like I feel like it was founded on the basis of disruption. Like the goal was to
Yeah,
disrupt, right? Like
100%.
I agree with that. But I honestly don't think that like Gary Player and or like former Live executives were thinking far enough ahead to be like, we're eventually going to better the game of golf through this. They were like, no, like golf is still like I just want to do something crazy. And you know what?
Um,
I think selfishly that I'm going to be able to make this last somehow, and I'm going to like my ideas are so like I it just I
you
think
do mean
saying
Greg
that
Norman, right?
Greg Norman, yeah, sorry, not Gary
Okay,
Player. All due
just making
respect to
sure.
Gary Player, I meant Greg Norman. Yes, yeah, yes. Too many G's going around in my head right now. Greg Norman, yes. I think it's just giving him too much credit. Like I think the reality is like I think they just kind of thought this idea would work and they wanted to be disruptive and wanted to, you know, draw eyes and be like, look, we're different. Like over here, like look at us. And I think to say that they knew that it was going to be a short-term project is a little bit giving them too much credit. I think in reality they were almost certainly like, we can make this work. Like people will look. People will look at us because we're going to do golf differently. We're going to play music. We're going to wear shorts. Like we're going to do all the things that like theoretically people on golf courses want to do, right? Like when I go play golf, I wear shorts and I play music sometimes. Like like if the course permits me to do that, I will have my speaker and I will be bumping some Eagles. I'll be having a grand old time out there. But I don't want to see that in my professional golf. Like that
Right.
doesn't mean I want to go watch that. I want to, that's how I want to play golf because I'm not that good at it. And if I go out there in pants on a 90-degree day and treat every shot like I'm like thousands and thousands of dollars are based on it, I'm not going to have that good a time. Uh, and I think that was kind of the mistake is that like they're like, well, this is what people want to do when they golf, so this is what they want to watch. Like, no, I want to watch the best golfers act like they have thousands of dollars on every shot because they do.
Yeah, well, I definitely do agree with that. But that being said, you can't deny sort of the impact that Liv has had on the PGA Tour, seeing as there's more
No, I
money,
don't.
more
I
accessible
just think that's more
schedules.
accidental. I think that's accidental. I don't think that was the Greg Norman's goal.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that was just like I'm saying this was zero sourcing, zero, like it was just kind of an idea that came to mind. I
No, it's
think
fair. I don't know
that
Greg Norman. I could be wrong.
yeah, I think, I definitely think that, just listening to obviously Greg Norman was sort of like the polar opposite. Like he was definitely the controversial like guy that's just trying to spearhead everything. But I feel like before Phil got dinged for that Saudi quote, um, his intent really was sort of the betterment of the game of golf from a professional standpoint. If you look at like what he was actually saying and sort of distract away from that like one soundbite, if you look at what he was actually saying, it really sounded like he was trying to really trying to sound like he was trying to grow the game of golf and improve the professional standpoint. And so I definitely could see this being a means towards an end.
I think we already talked about Alan Shipnuck. I think Phil just wanted to clear a bunch of gambling debt.
This is also true. Or
But I get where you're
possibly
coming
true.
from.
Possibly true.
I get where you're coming from. I just think it's giving him a little too much credit. I do have one more final takeaway from this story before we talk RBC Heritage. Are we ready to move on after that? We
I
good?
think we've spent about 40 minutes on Live so far, so I think it's time to move on.
Okay, I've got one more direct quote from the story from Brody Miller. Uh, it's the end of a sentence regarding startups that have failed, and it says that you might have heard Allbirds no longer sells shoes, but instead artificial intelligence infrastructure. I did not know that, and that kind of blew me away. I had no idea that they were when I was in high school. I don't know what the time frame was for you guys, or if this was a thing out in California, Kyle. Allbirds were the thing. People
Never heard
adored
of it.
Allbirds. Really? Oh,
No.
maybe I'm crazy. People from the Northeast maybe will know what I'm talking about. Allbirds were like everyone in in my school needed to have a pair of Allbirds. They didn't even look that cool. They were pretty much like socks, but shoes. Um, but they were huge, and I had no idea that they have transitioned from selling these like comfortable shoes to artificial intelligence infrastructure. Can't even comprehend how you make that pivot, but
I mean, they still
maybe
do. I'm on their website now. They still do sell shoes,
are you saying
but
Brody Miller is lying in his article, Nick?
there is a story from Forbes. The $39 million shoe company Allbirds turned into an AI stock. Um,
Sick. Anyways, that
yeah,
shocked me.
you
It clearly didn't
can
floor you guys quite as much as it floored me, but I was surprised.
yeah, you
We
could
can talk about
do
Harbortown now.
any viewers can do your research on Allbirds. Like That is a developing story. That seems like a very new
It's a
developing story,
developing
but
story.
as of now, we could do an emergency podcast about Allbirds,
Yeah.
but at this current moment, I can still buy shoes from Allbirds. So anyway,
Yeah.
Arbor Town.
Yeah. I don't know. Where do we want to take it? I think we talked about this off air. There it was not the most exciting tournament until the last 5 holes. I'm relatively convinced that Brian Rowlatt made a call and was like, "Hey, Scotty, we got to get a couple to fall here, or else we're losing viewers by the second." When Matt Fitzpatrick having this lead, you need to make a couple birdies. Matt, you're going to need to give one back on 18, just to make this thing dramatic. I will say, to just cross some T's and dot some I's, I guess, like get that administrative stuff out of the way. Matt Fitzpatrick, second PGA Tour win in 2026, obviously won the Valspar, and his second RBC Heritage win, which he won in 2023. We had that playoff now. Scotty Scheffler and Matt Fitzpatrick. The winner I was gonna say the same thing about both of them. Second PGA Tour win of the year, second RBC Heritage. So that was cool. Obviously, Matt Fitzpatrick's second playoff win too. He beat Jordan Spieth, just to jump right to the end of this event as well. He beat Jordan Spieth in 2023 with just a 9 iron that was like maybe the prettiest shot you've ever seen.
Of
It's
all
like
time,
dropped
yeah.
right on the flag. And then he followed it up with, I truly think that 4 iron that he hit on the playoff hole this week was one of the coolest looking shots I've ever seen in my life. Like
Absolutely.
a low piercing draw 4 iron directly into the wind. Also on the same hole that he hit 9 iron to just a couple years ago. Now he's hitting four. That's the stuff I like. Unfortunately, it's going to go directly against a take I have later, but that's for later. But that shot was so sick, like just so sick. And the hole, like on the 72nd hole, and I mean, Scotty's shot was atrocious on the playoff, but both of them bailed out right. Like that's the safe shot is bail out right. There's nothing good left to hit a draw into the wind, just like low and piercing like that with a 4 iron and stuff it. Ridiculous.
And
And
that's
made the putt, obviously, but
And that's even, he said that, hence the one-handed finish. He said after the round that he completely pulled that shot and started it way
yeah.
more left than he wanted it to,
Yeah,
which
you
I
don't
think
want
just
the
makes that
lion
even
landing on the
funnier.
flag. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Well, especially
Um,
pulling off that shot after, coughing up the lead. I mean, he birdied
yes,
two of his
horrific
first
chip.
3 holes of the day and then was just steady Eddie the rest of the day, parring everything, got tracked down on the 18th, bogeying it. And then, and it's not just anybody, it's freaking Scotty Scheffler. So to
Right.
bounce back in that playoff hole and
Yeah,
do that makes it even more cool. It was just
yeah.
awesome.
To set the stage a little bit more, like you mentioned, Fitzpatrick made, I believe it was 14 straight pars, but between in the final pairing between holes 4 and 14, which is 11 holes, they made 22 pars.
That's
Just
insane.
Not
so
many low
boring,
scores
like
yesterday.
not cool. But yeah, so obviously we enter Sunday. Fitzpatrick is at what's he at 17.
Yeah, he was
17
17 for
under. Scheffler is three back, and
14,
then
yeah.
Siwoo's at 13 in a crowd. But I want to talk about the guys at 13 and 12 here because there were guys that could have theoretically made a run. Um, but the weather picked up a little bit, and there was 8 players that were either at 13 or 12, which is 4 or 5 shots back from Fitzpatrick. 6 of them went over par. One of them broke 70. Siwoo shot a 68. He was the only one that was even sort of in this. Brian Harmon 76. Sepp Straka 78, which makes no sense because his entire thing is playing well in the wind. Guess that didn't work out on Sunday. Aldrich Pocketer had no business being there in the first place, but then shot a 75, which was cool. Andrew Novak 74, Patrick Cantlay 72. Sorry, Kyle. Gary Woodland 72, Ludwig Oberg 70. Like it was not a fun Sunday until the last 4 holes. It was just like, wow, okay, nothing's happening for 2.5 hours.
I mean,
Uh,
just quick shout
but
out, Gary Woodland's shot on 18 was
oh, that
majestic.
he made, yeah, he did make the eagle on the 72nd
That was
hole from the
incredible.
fairway. That was pretty cool.
But I think
Um,
just to answer just to like go to that point about just sort of the monotonous nature. I know um so when I was in Phoenix, or when we were in Phoenix rather, I walked on Sunday the opening 9 holes with Matt Fitzpatrick, and I was able to see it was a round where he was not doing well. The wheels were coming off, and I could tell with his body language that he was sort of feeling defeated and just sort of not like letting the round sort of get to him. He looked very bothered. I think what I noticed on what I noticed this Sunday was that he was playing like he had the lead. I don't think he was taking that many risks. I think he was playing sort of conservative, but at the same time, I feel like just looking at his body language, he looked very confident. He looked like he was able to. He looked like he was in command, and which is what made 18 really strange because he only needed a par. It looked like Scheffler wasn't going to make Scheffler wasn't going to like a par would have sealed the deal. And then he left himself just short-sided or not short-sided. It was long and right, but
Mhm.
in a really not a very difficult spot to make par. I know he
I mean, you
mentioned
saw
he
Scheffler do it
was
right before him.
exactly. I know he mentioned that he was on the grain a little bit, but one thing the announcers were really quick to say was that it seemed like he was really rushing that shot,
Hmm.
which was very uncharacteristic from what happened throughout the rest of the day.
I think they said that on his approach too. They were like, "Man, he just stepped up and hit that. Like that was
Yeah.
really quick." And it did seem, I mean, it just was not a good chip from a guy who's a really, really good chipper, despite chipping cross-handed. It did seem just like a really poor chip. I mean, it's like a hill that goes down to the hole. All you got to do is crest that hill with a little bit of speed, which is scary because yes, you can leave it short of the hill, which is what he did. But you saw Scotty like he just got it rolling over that hill, and it settled 18 inches away from the cup for a tap in par. And then Fitz, who goes after him, he's actually closer, but like you said, maybe the grain made it a little harder. Um, just did not, I don't know if he duffed it a little bit, but just did not have the pace to get over that hill. It is so weird to see him like look so in control for 17 holes, look totally out of control for two shots, and then on the playoff just like lock right back in. I know that 4 iron was pulled, but like still just to hit those two shots back to back and then make that putt after essentially, well, not essentially, after handing the lead away on the 72nd hole to Scotty Scheffler of all people is pretty impressive stones. And I know Scotty made it a little bit easy for him on the playoff with like maybe the worst approach shot I've ever seen Scotty Scheffler hit.
Yeah, what do you
That
make
was
of
real.
that?
That was
That
like
was
40 yards
bizarre.
short.
I think he was trying to keep it low and he kind of did a weird combo of like duffing it a little bit and then that makes it go up higher in the air so it like it just double whammy like exponential went up wind beat it more. It was a bad shot regardless, but I think probably if we're talking still wind it's like 10 yards closer or 15 yards closer, 10 yards short or something like that. And then just the combo of him not peering it and the wind being there. Um, just killed him because it went up in the air, but it was gross. I mean, like truly gross. He had a pretty good wedge to like 8.5 feet. Knowing Scotty probably would have made that putt, but it didn't end up mattering because Fitzpatrick rolled in that 13-foot birdie putt after four
Well,
iron, after that 4 iron.
I
So
I have another theory because
is it Brian
when
Rolette made a call? I already
no,
have
it
the theory.
is it is when so when Fitz bogeyed 18, like I thought for sure Scotty was going to win in a playoff. Like Fitz looked rattled. He did not
Well,
look very
Scotty had
good.
birdied 15 and 16 too, right?
Right. And even
So it's like he's
Fitz's
got the upper hand.
Fitz looked incredibly rattled after that shot, but the first thing I noticed was when he got to the tee box, or when the two of them got to the tee box, he walked right up to. First off, he was like shaking hands of all like the members and was like just seemed very relaxed. And then he goes up to Scheffler, he's like, "Hi, I'm Matt Fitzpatrick." Like just like joking around, like seemed very relaxed first and foremost. Like he was really able to put the shot behind him. And like I'm so sick of this being a storyline every time Matt Fitzpatrick's in contention, by the way. But even,
We're
like
doing USA chants again.
yeah, we're gonna talk
Hated
about
it.
that. And so like, Scheffler was even like 15, 20 yards ahead of Fitz with his drive. And so like Fitz was on the right side. The gallery is like relentlessly chanting USA. And you know, that that sort of unlocked a beast in Fitzpatrick, I think. And that sort of fired him up. And I think those USA chants are really what he spoke about it after the round. And he's done this every single time. And this is why I hate that it's a storyline. Um, is it corny? It's absolutely corny. It's terrible. But at the same, I loved like I believe Jim Nance's exact quote was the American fans and their jingoistic chants was the exact wording, which I thought was incredible. But what Matt Fitzpatrick has said every single week that USA chants have been there was like, hey, I'm a football fan. Like I've grown up with this. I'm English. I've grown up with this mentality. I love it. I feed off of it. The one thing he said that kind of caught his attention was that the American fans had a short attention or had a short memory and didn't remember what happened the last time they chirped him at Bethpage. And so it seems like, everybody's trying to make this as, oh my God, American fans are the worst. They're harassing, they're abusing Matt Fitzpatrick. He loves it. Like he says, he's like, bring it on.
Yeah, I don't think it's harassment or abuse. I just think it's so uniquely stupid. I'm like, how think of anything creative? The thing with like football chants or USA chants at the Ryder Cup, like you're playing for your country. I know not like, but like the football chants you get between two like, Premier League teams are not about it being England. It's about like a team or a city or whatever. Like that's what those chants are about. When it's an individual sport where being from America versus being from the UK has literally no effect on this, like we got to think of something better than just chanting USA at the non-American guy. Like that's my thing with it. Like I honestly don't have an issue. Like I get that Matt Fitzpatrick feeds off of it. I get that, sure, in terms of being a fan, I guess you would first root for the guy that is, American over the guy that's not if you're an American. But at the same time, like, I mean, especially when it's Scotty Scheffler versus Matt Fitzpatrick, like a number one player in the world versus at the time, it was number seven player in the world, now number three player in the world. Like, we got to do better than just being like, USA, US. I don't know. Think
Yeah,
of anything
it was
beyond that. Like,
boring.
that makes me think that you don't actually know who's playing. You don't actually have like a true like golf like you're not a fan of either of these guys. You're just like, okay, I don't really care, so I guess I'll root for the American.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to
Kyle's got
describe it.
a sneaky little smile going on down
Will
there, I feel like.
Will from his ivory tower up there looking down upon the South
Yeah.
Carolina golf fans.
Yeah.
I mean, I just it's all dumb. There's been like the return of the "Gimme Back My Son" quote from the Mel Gibson
I heard
movie.
that. Yeah, that was
I mean,
really
that's like
funny.
making a comeback now the last few weeks. I just love Matt Fitzpatrick's response to all of it. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
we get paid a ton of money. I don't care who's chanting at me. I'm a world-class athlete. Every athlete worth a salt has always said they have more fun silencing the road crowd than you do, playing at home kind of thing. I just love Matt Fitzpatrick's response to it. Just shows he's just, a good dude and
Yeah.
he loves
I
it.
agree.
So
I agree. I just think it's stupid.
It was the
It's just
epitome
not a unique
of
opinion.
it was the epitome of ball don't lie. Was that shot right there? I
yeah.
think
Yeah.
that it absolutely fired him up.
There's
And
there's there's got to be some like essence of after Fitzpatrick kind of buffs 18 and then you've got the chanting and the blah 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 and like you mentioned him going up to Scotty be like nice to meet you, which was kind of lame, but
I
whatever.
know.
He
I
do
when
do
Nick said that, I was
whatever.
like, that would have pissed me the hell
Yeah,
off.
do whatever. Yeah, whatever.
Maybe that's why
He
Scotty
had to have
duffed that
just been
iron.
like F it, I don't
Yeah.
whatever. Like I just got to go out and play.
yeah.
Nick, I know you want to open this up into a broader Matty Fitz discussion. So before we talk about anybody else, do you want to take that one? Do you want to start running with that?
Well, that was my question because you mentioned that he's the number three player in the world right now, and to me that brings the question of is he the number three player? Like looking at who some of the best players in the world. I think that was one of the questions in his press conference is do you feel you're the best golfer in the world right now? Which he said no, but I think it's I'm trying to think of like who I would take as the best. I think, I think the way it is right now is I take Scotty, Rory, and then Fitz. I don't really think there's anybody better right now.
I take Xander. I think I would take Xander. Um,
I mean,
I
Fitz
think
is
that's probably it. I would take Cam Young because I like Cam Young, but I think in general I would take Xander Schauffele over Matt Fitzpatrick. But he's in the first five people that you pick right now for sure. Um, I'd say Colin Morikawa is just outside that. That's kind of where the buck stops for me. Like that, I think those are the people I would hear you if you told me I would take Colin Morikawa, Cameron Young, or Xander Schauffele over him. I don't know that I'd hear anybody else, to be honest. Like I think I'd have a pretty staunch argument. I mean, it depends what kind of draft we're doing. But, you wouldn't take Ludwig.
yeah,
Um,
I agree.
definitely not right now. Like I
Because
think those are kind of the only guys.
I ask in the context of I was looking at world ranking points last night just in terms of like the overall gaps, and nobody's catching Scotty at world number one, nobody's catching Rory at world number two. That's just not happening. But what somebody said was that, and to be fair, I feel like in this tweet they overcategorized Scotty. Like I think just before I get to it, but like just looking at Scotty, I think, we said heading into this week he was going to win by 10. And I think, if anything, this last like 3 months have proved that Scotty's human and
Mhm.
that he's not going to dominate these events, but he's absolutely going to be there. He's absolutely going to be contending and is still very much a force, but I don't think he's this like godlike figure anymore. But so what the tweet said was like, let's assume Scotty continues on this downward spiral, which back-to-back runner-ups is not a downward
Yeah,
spiral, by the way.
pretty great downward
But
spiral.
so like assuming he does tend to fall off, the earliest someone will catch him at world number one is probably around like mid 2027.
Mhm.
And like just by the math. And they
Because it takes
asked,
the last 2 years, right? It takes the last 2 years of your
right.
results.
And so of all the people that are going to catch him, who would it be? And I would have to say if I'm taking names, I would have to say Matt Fitzpatrick is probably the most likely to be world number one after Scotty Scheffler, is my guess.
Not Rory.
I don't know because if Scotty was a lot closer, I would say Rory right now, but I think there is obviously we saw just how much the Masters meant to him, but I think we're going to see just how invested he is on all of the rest of the events in terms of not
Yeah.
just the majors anymore. So I don't think Rory has stamina is the wrong word, but I just don't think Rory has the all around um, play to be the next world number one.
Well, I just think so there's a little bit of an important like not caveat here, but like the way these are calculated is somewhat important. So it's like your last 2 years average points, which, as you might imagine, is just based on your finishes, divided by the events you've played. So Rory does not get penalized for playing less events, which I think
Right,
is
I'm just
why I would probably take. No, I'm providing that context. That's all I'm doing
yeah.
because I think that's why I would take Rory. I agree with you that he won't necessarily, be able to back up the performance he has at the Masters or what I would probably expect from other majors at smaller events. I also just don't think he's going to play that many smaller events, which is why I'd probably say that he's going to be able, like, he has to make up so much less ground. And if we're saying Scotty comes back to earth and like returns to, around where Rory is now, I think it's just so much easier for Rory to jump that than for Matt Fitzpatrick to like the gap between Rory and Scotty Scheffler is the same as the gap between Rory and Matt Fitzpatrick right now, pretty
Yeah.
much.
I
Slightly
think
smaller. So
from a mathematical standpoint, I do agree. I think, if Scotty falls back, then the first person that is going to catch him just by math is Rory. And so I think, I do kind of
I
agree
would
with that.
I put Cam Young. I still put Cam Young, Xander Schauffele, and Matt Fitzpatrick in that group, and Colin Morikawa.
Yeah.
I think
Collins,
I
yeah,
would say
he's got
that's
to
a
be there.
tier of four guys. Like I think that's kind of how I'd describe it. I don't think like the other guys just looking at OWGR who are right there are Justin Rose, Tommy Fleetwood, Russell Henley. Those guys aren't doing it. JJ Spawn, no. Chris Gotterup is 11th in the world, which is a little shocking.
He was in the top
Um,
10 for a while.
Decent, yeah, good finish this week actually is one of his more recent good finishes. Oh, you mean top 10 of OWGR?
Yeah.
Yeah, when he won twice early in the year, I guess he probably vaulted up there pretty quick. But
Yeah.
Sepp Straka, Robert McIntyre, like there's a pretty distinct tier to me of like Matt Fitzpatrick, Cam Young, Colin Morikawa, and Xander Schauffele being one of those four guys. I think would certainly be the next person other than Rory to kind of catch that world number one. Um, I know you're expecting a major out of Matt Fitzpatrick. So far, Cam Young's got the bigger win in the last 2 years. Um,
Yeah. No, I would agree with that. I stand by. I believe Matt Fitzpatrick will win a major in 2026. I 100% stand by that, but I do agree with that. And obviously, yeah, he has the win of the players. And so I think that is a big one, and that is probably one of the biggest differentials for me. But yeah, I think
Kyle, where would you go, Kyle, with between those guys? Like, who you think might be the guy to? Are we forgetting anybody? I know you like your Tommy Fleetwood. I don't see that.
No, I don't. I'm kind of soured on Tommy. I agree with you. I think I'd probably still put Colin and Cam Young ahead of Matt Fitz if I was
I
just
think I would
ranking those
too.
guys one, two, three. Fitz has had a great last month, starting with the players, maybe last 5 weeks. He's been two second place, one Valspar. He was okay at the Masters, T18, and then obviously won yesterday. But his first, couple months of the season wasn't anything special. I think Cam Young is kind of falls in a similar boat, um, where his first couple months of the season wasn't great, but has had been pretty good for the last month, including that huge player win. I think I'd put Colin ahead of both of those guys.
I kind
He's
of like I yeah.
he's just been more steady. He won the Pebble Beach Pro-Am T7 at Genesis, fifth at the Arnold Palmer. He, of course, withdrew the players because of that back, but still bounced back to have a T7 at the Masters and then a T4 yesterday. If he
Yeah.
was healthy, I would even wonder if those results would be even better.
I
But
think
I think
yeah.
they're all right neck and neck for
yeah.
sure.
No Xander for you.
Yeah, I'd throw Xander in there too. A little
I
bit disappointing last few weeks though.
yeah. I think it's worth having conversation's the wrong word. I think it's worth like putting like a dedicating a moment right now to like put respect on Colin Morikawa and what he's done the past few weeks. I think, like you said, like
Absolutely.
the injury
Hmm.
sidelined everything, but the fact that he's come back from the injury with what was it, a T7 at the Masters and then a
Yep.
T4 this week,
Yep.
um, is really impressive. And when he won the AT&T Pebble Beach Pro-Am, it it very much looked like we were going to get like major champion Colin Morikawa back. I mean, that's the type of ball striking he was doing. That's the type of confidence he was playing with. Um, when he won that signature event. And I think we said at the time, like this might be like, we might be back to the 2020, 2021 Colin Morikawa that we saw knock off two majors. I wouldn't be surprised. I know there's only three more majors to go around, so we can't name 10 guys that we think are going to win them. I wouldn't be surprised if Colin Morikawa knocks one off. Like if he finds his way to a US Open, like that wouldn't be crazy to me at all. Like he's absolutely one of the best golfers. And I think it's definitely worth like, like you said, if he's having these results when he's playing, I don't think he's like truly injured, like he's said, like we've talked about, but I think he's playing tentative. If he's having these results when he's playing tentative, he had one of the cleanest cards on Sunday. He was the one of, I believe, let me try to see if I can find this, but I think it was just him and Scotty Scheffler were the only people within the top 41. Actually, sorry, three guys: Maverick McNeely, Colin Morikawa, and Scotty Scheffler were the three players within the top 47 golfers entering Sunday to shoot a 67. There was a 62 out there that Michael Kim apparently got early in the day. Nobody even knew about that. Nobody saw it happen. Not sure it really did, but there was golfers that went off early that were able to score, and then when the wind picked up, it was just Colin Morikawa, Matt McNeely, and Scotty Scheffler. Um, yeah, man, he is pretty sick. There's a lot of Colin Morikawa slander that happens, and he's done some weird things like put shoes on his dog and stuff. But outside of that specific moment, I think it's worth mentioning that he is absolutely lighting it up right now.
I think if we wanted to like put a numerical value on this and like make like a tier list, I think I would obviously put like just Scotty and Rory in like the untouchable tier.
Hmm.
And then if we had to go on like the top tier, I personally would go Fitz, Colin, and Cam Young. I don't have Xander on that list right now, just
Okay,
because
you think
he's
he's a tier
been.
below?
I think he's knocking on the door. Like I have his results pulled up.
Yeah, I had the same thing.
T12 at RBC, T9 Masters, T4 Valspar, third at the Players. So he's knocking at the door, but the one thing that all three of those golfers have that Xander doesn't is a win in 2026. And I feel like that is the one thing that he's missing right now. And I think he's right there. He's on the cusp, but a win is going to put him in that tier for me.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think it depends on how you're viewing it because I'm thinking more like looking into the future of like who might move up. Xander has the opportunity to move up a ton. Like you said, I mean, like Matt Fitzpatrick's already got the 2 wins this year. It's hard. He's gonna have two more. Like yeah, that's what he's gonna need to like jump up a lot. Xander,
I agree there. Yeah.
but I think yeah, if we want to do a quick tier list, I mean, I would agree. I think for me, it would just go in that tier. I think I would go Morikawa, Cam Young, Fitzpatrick, Schauffele, and I would put Schauffele in there. I think the guy who I have a lot of question marks about that we don't need to have a whole conversation about is Ludwig Oberg, who like by all intents and purposes should be in that tier, but somehow he's nowhere near it. Not nowhere near it's
Yeah.
not fair, but he's like, but like in my head, I'm like, oh, why am I forgetting Ludwig Oberg? And I'm like, no, not really. Like he just doesn't belong in there.
Well,
But
there's just like the different, like Xander, we just have such high expectations for him because we've seen him do it. We've seen him win majors and
mhm,
we know how good he is. And it just feels like he's just left a little something to be desired. Like you read off his results list and it's like, damn, like that's really freaking good. He just hasn't gotten it done this year. And
yeah,
I feel like Ludwig is kind of like a pre-Xander where he obviously hasn't broken through yet, but he's been like pretty consistently good. But it's like, do you think he's gonna win? You can't say you do because we haven't seen it.
yeah. I mean, we had a whole conversation of like, when do we need to start raising the red flag and being like, hey, did this guy just not close? Like, is that something we need to think about? And it's
Right.
not yet, but I'm not far from it. Um, but anyways, yeah, I think that's a fair. I mean, the point being, Matt Fitzpatrick is up there. Matt Fitzpatrick is a
Yeah,
top five golfer in the world. Whether or not you think he's third, I think it's pretty safe to say he's a top five, six golfer in the world, no question.
Agreed. Yeah.
easily,
100%.
easily.
So
And I wouldn't be
that's
surprised if he wins a major. I think you might be right, Nick.
yeah.
Would not
I got
at
the U.S.
all.
Open circled and the Open Championship as well.
That's good because
I think any of the three
Cam
majors, I'd
Young's winning
say
the
he
players, so
or well, he
Cam
already
Young's winning the
did.
players,
So
so yeah. Oh, sorry, the PGA.
yeah, I think all
He's
three
doubling
of the
up on the P's.
majors. I could see. I would say out of all three of the majors, I'd say the PGA is the one that I feel the least confident about for Fitzpatrick. But I think
Do you want to take a
one of
stand now and say that Matt Fitzpatrick is going to win all three of the rest of the majors?
I mean, until he doesn't, it's not impossible. So
It's true. Unfortunately, imagine that would be sick. I was going to say he could go for the career Grand Slam, but he needs the Masters still. So
right,
never mind.
right.
But we do have career Grand Slam chases around the corner, but we don't need to talk about who that might be.
No, we do not.
No. Um, okay. Is there anybody? I mean, there's a couple like Victor Hovland absolutely
What the
exploded.
hell
Uh,
happened there? Yeah.
This was my favorite stat that I was doing that I found when I was looking at it. That's the only reason I really want to talk about it. He went ended up T42, T41 actually. I think I miswrote that at 6 under par, 64, 65, 73, 76, and his strokes gained putting by round is pretty spectacular stuff. It's 3.61 strokes gained in round one, which was second, 2.699 strokes gained in round two, which was sixth, then 3.57 strokes lost in round three, second to last, and 3.26 strokes lost in round four, last. Hard to do, especially because the greens don't change. I don't care if there's wind, it's the same greens. How
Yeah.
can you possibly have 6 shots? I guess between round one and round three, 7 shots different just putting. Hard to
That's
do. Pretty
insane.
impressive stuff out of Victor. Um,
Um,
that's kind of it. There was other guys, that are worth shouting out. Ricky Fowler, great tournament. Patrick Cantlay, Kyle, you stay hot. Good work. Looked like he was going to finally get that win. I think it's been since like
God,
2022 or 2021 or something. It's been a while, but
he
you
yeah.
got
almost
to he
sniped
got
it.
to 14 under too, and then just kind of fell off.
Yeah.
So
And then we mentioned Morikawa T4 and Ludwig Oberg T4. Good finish.
We've been talking
So, but
for a while. So did we mention Max Homa already?
no, we've got that's we should get to my prove me wrong guy, arguably the most important segment we do every week. Um, Diabolical stuff. The finish is not really what we need to talk about, but just for context, T69, 1 under, 70, 70, 74, 69, did not play well. Nick, what else did he do this week that might require a mention?
He
He
also
was on
tomahawked
good
a club.
behavior, right? Oh,
Yeah,
he was not
he
on good behavior.
tomahawked a club on hole 15 less than a week after calling out Sergio Garcia for his behavior on hole was it hole two
Two.
at Augusta?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he basically at his Wednesday presser, he came out and said, I don't like it when guys throw clubs. It's childish. It's a bad look. We get paid so much money to be here. Like don't beat up the course. And then, um, he is
He
in
just
the
it's so funny.
he's in the native
To his,
area, and
yeah,
he goes to punch out. I think he clips a branch, doesn't get to the fairway, and just
just pop. I kind of love when they do that. When you like kind of have it up here and then you have the follow through the clubs on your shoulder, just
it's so
launch it
satisfying
forward.
to watch.
But
But
he, to his credit, he did say that he doesn't like when golfers break clubs. For all intents and purposes, his club
didn't
is
break it.
fine. Didn't
Exactly.
break it. He didn't say anything about throwing clubs. For all I know, I think he might just love when golfers do that. But
Yeah.
no, he did take to Instagram and issue an apology that was just like the most like, yeah, man, like, okay, like, fine. I don't know. He said, I mentioned in this interview that we as pros should be held to a high standard and we should be kept accountable. I'm thankful so many people have held me accountable on this. Bad look, not proud, but looking forward to bettering myself. Good. Okay. I don't know.
Didn't really have a choice, had to. This is why if
No,
I'm
Yeah.
if
yeah,
I'm a pro athlete or pro golfer, I'm not speaking on anybody else except for myself because
yeah,
you just put yourself in a bad position,
yeah.
Right.
when stuff like this happens.
Yeah. If you're gonna call out somebody for bad behavior on the course, you have to be damn near
And
perfect
not
for like
only
the rest of
the
the year.
next week,
For your yeah,
the next
four
freaking week.
days.
I
Four
mean,
Yeah, it's just
days.
not great.
like you couldn't have wrote a script that was funnier than that.
I mean,
Oh,
like,
so
Hilarious.
bad.
and that's I would even say like if you're gonna say something like that, like you had your that quote is going to haunt him for his entire career now, I would
Absolutely.
say.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
so,
yeah.
like,
I
to be
mean, they would
fair,
have pulled, if he did this 3 years later, they would have pulled this Masters quote out of the woodworks. Instead, he just
exactly.
did it 4 days later.
To
Made it
be
easy on
fair,
us.
I 100% agree with everything he said, by the way. Like, he is 100% right. It is incredibly childish for these players to be like throwing these little tantrums on the course. I said the same thing about Sergio. It is incredibly childish, and he really hit the issue on the nose. But yeah, it's not a good look.
He might have just been giving us an example. Have you guys thought about that? He actually was just like, just to show you guys what I think is so abhorrent. I'm gonna give you a
Right.
little
He turned it into
example
a
by
teachable
doing it.
moment.
Yeah, exactly. He was like, "See, kids, this is what you shouldn't do."
Exactly. Man of the
He
people,
didn't
Max
lose his
Homa.
temper at all. Uh, yeah. Should we? Uh, are we good on Max Homa?
I
It
think we're
was
good.
just it was worth mentioning, but
Yeah.
I also want to use another elite performance by Mr. Tony Finau to talk about why the hell signature events don't
Oh
have
God.
cuts.
That
We
was
don't need to spend a
rough.
ton of time on it, but Tony Finau, 11 over finish, three straight 75s to start us off this week. Not pretty. Why is he there on Saturday and Sunday? What are we gaining?
Right.
Uh, like I don't know. We talked a lot about this off the air, so I don't need to rehash it entirely. I just don't understand at all. Signature events are supposed to be the thing between regular events and major championships and the players. It's supposed to be the thing in between, the ones that are more important. So why are they the only one where we have no cut? That doesn't make any
It
sense.
makes zero sense.
Literally, major championships do the opposite. There are a million, like the whole point of major championships. That's not true. Not the whole point. But major championships, one of the great things about them, especially the PGA Championship, the U.S. Open, even the Masters and the Open, like, and especially the Open Championship, have so many routes for other guys to get in the field and have an opportunity. Instead, at signature events, we're limiting the amount of people who can play, and we're saying, I actually don't care how poorly you play on Thursday and Friday. Guess what? You get to make money and play the whole weekend. That is the antithesis of what this is supposed to be and the antithesis of what like major championships are. So I don't understand how we got to this place where that was the right call for what signature events should be. Like that
Right.
makes no sense to me at all.
And like you had, I believe it was Saturday, there was a featured group of Justin Thomas and Tony Finau, both of whom were 9 over on the day, I
Yeah,
think.
just seeing who can do
And
worse.
right. And so I think if my math is correct, Tony Finau finished pretty much 30 shots behind Matt Fitzpatrick, which is
Your math is correct, right? Yeah,
bizarre. Because
18,
yeah,
yeah, 29 shots.
yeah. So that is bizarre to me. And so like, when there was a cut at Riviera and like I think we found out like halfway through Friday that oh, there's going to be a cut and like nobody knew what was going on. But at the same time, the way they did it was if you're within 10 shots of the lead, you're safe, and if not, you're going
Mhm.
home.
It's top
And
50 or 10 shots. Yeah.
yeah, I think that has to be the standard at all signature events. I think there's because otherwise, what is the point of like why are you denying other like I know you have the Aeon Swing 5, the Swing 10, whatever. Like I know you have methods to qualify for this event, but why are you denying all of these players the opportunity to play so Tony Finau can finish 30 shots outside the lead?
Where is Neil Shipley? Why is he not in this field? Just kidding.
What are you doing?
No, I think like the in the boardroom, right? Like the pitch has got to be like, okay, look, like if we don't have a cut, you never know what can happen. These guys are so good, they could go 64, 64 on Saturday, Sunday, and find themselves in contention. That will never happen. Like
Right.
that will happen one every 14, no, one every 100 signature events, maybe. But that guy doesn't win anyways, but like somebody who would have missed the cut is like you look up and you're like, oh my God, they're like 4 strokes off the lead. What a great Saturday round that was. It's like but that doesn't it makes no sense. I can't like rationalize it in my brain. I honestly hadn't really thought about it that much, Nick, until you brought it up and until you were like Tony Finau's 10 shot worse than everybody by 10 shots, which didn't end up being true at the end, but he was at that time or something like that. When you brought that up and like I actually started thinking about it, I was like, wow, why do we do this? Like, what the hell is the point of this? Like, what?
Right. Who does it benefit?
It literally, I guess it benefits.
Tony
I
Finau?
don't know, Matt Fitzpatrick. Yeah, Tony Finau makes money. That's who it benefits. It benefits the guys who, you know, show up, cut a check by playing horrific golf. Just like, okay,
Yeah. Well, there were other people who played really good golf on the LPGA Tour. Let's get to them.
yes, yeah, we can do it. Yeah, well, we've got a bunch of tournaments around the world, but we'll give the LPGA a little time here because Hannah Green is elite.
Yes.
And one of the weirder things about the LPGA Tour I've noticed this year, especially, is like title defenses. This is the second time Hannah Green has defended a title. She didn't win this one last year, but this is her third time winning the JM Eagle LA Championship in the last 4 years. And her earlier win this year was another title defense. That one was back to back. This is her second win on the LPGA Tour. Like I said, in 4 starts, she's now fifth in the world. I think she entered at around seventh, I believe she was when this tournament started. It was not the world's strongest field. Hyoju Kim, world number 3, WD'd. Minji Lee, WD'd, world number 6. Haijin Choi did the same, world number 17. And people like Nelly Korda was not in the field already. I forget what the exact number was, but it wasn't a huge amount of the top 25 in this field to begin with. But that doesn't change what the performance Hannah Green put on. It was a three-way playoff between her, Jin Hee Im, and Se Young Kim, who had led pretty much the entire event. And Hannah Green went on a 5 birdies and 6 holes run on the back nine on Sunday to shoot 31, no bogeys on the back nine, get her way into that playoff, and then birdie the playoff hole to get her win again. And we are around the corner from the Chevron Championship. The first LPGA major championship of the year is next weekend.
Exactly.
And it is a story of hot hands. I mean, Hannah Green's got a hot hand, but Hyoju Kim, 2 wins. Nelly Korda has 1 win and 3 second-place finishes in 4 starts, and now Hannah Green's logged 2 wins as well. And that doesn't even mention Gino Titakun, who is the number 1 in the world and had that massive win in Thailand. So there's a lot of things to think about as the LPGA heads down to Memorial Park for their first major tournament. But I mean, Hannah Green looks awesome and obviously is not fading under the pressure. 5 under back nine on Sunday to chase down Se Young Kim and then win that playoff with a birdie is just like, really, really impressive under the gun performance.
Yeah, I think, obviously, with the Zurich next week, hopefully there's a bit more time to give to the Chevron. I think I'm really excited for that. I think it has one of the one of the coolest I saw this morning. They talked about like the sort of like the articles of clothing that people get for winning tournaments. Like you have the plaid jacket that Matt Fitzpatrick won.
Mhm.
Obviously, you have the green jacket. I think if you win the CME on the LPGA, you get a blue jacket. If you win the Chevron, you get a bathrobe. And I
That
think
rocks.
that is like I would rather have a bathrobe over a green jacket. I'm gonna be so honest. I think that is so.
The
I think
crazy statement.
that is so cool to me.
I think I'd rather have Arnold Palmer's cardigan, that like red cardigan that you get
Ooh,
when
yeah,
you win
that's a good
that
one
one.
too.
That one's pretty
Yeah,
fire. No,
bring
that
back
is sick. And
cardigans.
we don't need to bring back cardigans. We've had my I've talked about how much I hate the golfing cardigan on this show already. My dad then texted me and was like, I like those cardigans. like, sorry, Dad, this is where we differ. I hate it.
Sorry, Billy Horschel.
Um, yeah, Billy Horschel, unnecessary stray. Although I think he also had a horrific week this week. Yep, 80th, 5 over.
Oof.
Cool. Anyways, that's enough Billy Horschel slander. But uh,
Wait,
no, man,
hold
the
on.
Chevron's
Can I
gonna be
just
really
say
exciting.
it is crazy that 80th was 5 over and 82nd was 11 over.
Correct, and
Yeah.
81st was 6 over.
Not to pile on Tony Finau even more, but that's
Um,
kick a man when he's down. But
I hope you're right, Nick, in that, we've got the Zurich Classic this week, which is, the team event on the PGA Tour. I hope that means we can move some things around, and it's a weird event. It doesn't really count towards a lot of stuff. I mean, it counts for PGA Championship, both winners get in, but like US Open, winners don't get into the US Open through the Zurich Classic. It is not counted as one of those events. Less FedEx Cup points per winner because obviously you can't, a lot full to both guys on the team. I like to think that that means that we're going to get more focus on the Chevron Championship. I kind of think it means we're going to get like inundated with Fitzpatrick brother content.
this is
We are
true.
going to get abused by Fitzpatrick brother content this week. I mean,
Absolutely.
especially Alex Fitzpatrick coming off his win on the DP World Tour, which I believe is still the most recent event they've played.
I think
They
so,
haven't played
yeah.
in a couple weeks. I know Jordan Gumberg won the week before that, and then now it's Alex Fitzpatrick, still the most recent winner on the DP World Tour. Will
That
not
might
be
be my
defending,
that might be my
but
pick for the week. I think
I mean,
I have to go with the hot hand.
sure. Sure, man. You can do what like it's such a weird week. We'll
Yeah,
have
this
some
is
fun
this is a
content on
throwaway
Wednesday, I
week.
think, but like I really do hope that that means that we get a little bit more attention to the Chevron because it is a major championship on the LPGA Tour, and there are some really, really and it's at a familiar course too. It's at Memorial Park. We were just there like a month ago for the PGA Tour, for the Texas Children's Houston Open. So PGA Tour fans know this course. Hopefully I think that's some of the difficulty that you get when you try to convince PGA Tour fans to tune into LPGA events is that the unfamiliarity with the courses and the layouts. When we're at Memorial Park, we just played this. We all know it. I literally just had to copy and paste my notes over and adjust it for, different par for LPGA and different distances for LPGA, but a lot of it still rings true. Hopefully that allows for the LPGA to take a little bit more of the front seat than it usually does.
Yeah, absolutely. That'll definitely be a fun one to track. So, what else happened this year or this week
We're
rather?
This year, man, it's been a long one.
It's been a long year, yeah.
No, well, I'm gonna group a couple together here: Korn Ferry Tour and Champions Tour. Korn Ferry Tour, we had the Tulum Championship. Champions Tour, we had the Senior PGA. Like bizarrely similar scorecards out of the winners. On the Korn Ferry Tour, we had Dylan Menant, who was 19 under. On Champions Tour, we had Stuart Sink winning his first senior major championship win, also 19 under. Stuart Sink went 69, 67, 70, 63. Menant went 70, 67, 69, 63. So just swap 2 rounds in there. But both of them had outrageous Sundays to run away with the win. Um, Both of them, Sunday 63 was the low round for Stuart Sink. It was the low round by 3 strokes, I believe, for Dylan Menant. And I do hope I'm pronouncing that last name right. I believe it was the best round by 4 strokes, and he went on to win by 6 over Blades Brown, who held the Saturday night lead. There's a lot of storylines we've talked about with Blades Brown, the fact that he hasn't actually knocked any of these off yet, but don't blame him for this one. When a guy in your pairing goes out and shoots 63, there's only so much you can do. And like, especially when it's the low round of the day by 4, it was not a day where people were chasing 63, 64s. Blades shot a 70, solid. Just, there wasn't anything. Dylan Menant was winning this tournament.
Yeah,
His first Korn Ferry
absolutely.
Tour win. So no, my opinion of Blades Brown is not brought down by this at all. But good for those guys. Like I said, Stuart Sink's first senior major championship win. Good to see him take the win. That was at the Concession Golf Club in Bradenton, which we talked a little bit about before. I do want to spend a very brief 1 minute on PGA Tour Americas had their first event. I know I said when we pitched this or previewed this tournament that we weren't going to talk a ton about it, but Mason Green wins with a 22 under, pretty dominant, 65, 64, 66, 67, and, bogeyed the par 5 72nd hole. Uh, so it ended up being a 2-shot win. It would have been 3 or 4. But he's a good sponsored athlete. This is his second PGA sponsored event ever. His first was a Korn Ferry Tour event that he qualified for and missed the cut at in July. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting to see, I guess. I don't know. I mean, he's not like a YouTuber the same way the guys on Good Good are, like, the Garrett Clarks of the world, the rest of that team. Like, they are YouTube golfers who are not pursuing professional golf. So it's like we're not talking about James Nicholas, who is also a guy who does YouTube, one on the Corn Ferry Tour this year. We're not talking quite something to the level of like if Garrett Clark showed up and won this event. But at the same time, it's really impressive. Um, Great showing out of him. I mean, just like tons of birdies, obviously, to go 22 under. It seems like that's what you're going to need to do to win on the PGA Tour Americas is just go crazy low. Um, and it's only a 15 event tour. And like we said, the top 10 get Korn Ferry Tour cards. So when you win one event, you're pretty well positioned. Obviously, no guarantees or anything like that that his play needs to keep up. But when 10 guys get Korn Ferry Tour cards on a 15 event schedule, a win in the first event is huge. Goes a
Yep.
long, long
Absolutely.
way. So good for him. I hope we can see him continue to play well. It'd be awesome to see him, qualify for the Korn Ferry Tour. As we laid out before, at the very, very least, if he doesn't get into that top 10, he will certainly be, skipping a couple levels of Q school too, just with this one win, skipping a couple levels of Q school
For
and
sure.
able to, he's very well positioned is what I'm trying to say in a very, very long-winded way.
And I think you make an interesting point as well about him being a good athlete, but not like a good YouTuber. I think just seeing the influence that good has had on the game of golf. I know they had like the Creator Classic or whatever they did in Phoenix as well. Um, they obviously they have apparel. Like I think we saw when we were in Phoenix, there was a lot of good stuff. People were wearing good stuff. I think they're trying to expand their outreach. They're trying to expand their deals, and I think having partnerships with these athletes sort of gives them a bit of credibility and it gives them a good opportunity as well. So
Yeah,
interesting.
I forget who their whole list of sponsored athletes are, clothing sponsored athletes are. I know Joel Dahmen's one. Damon? Dahmen? I always mess
Damon,
that up.
yeah.
Joel Damon's one. Um, Mason Green is obviously another one, but they've got a handful on the PGA Tour. But yeah, Mason Green, not like a good member, but is a good sponsored athlete. So good for them to get a little bit more,
Key sponsored
run.
athletes include PGA Tour players Joel Damon, Bo Hostler, John Pak, Willie Mack III, and PGA professional Michael Block.
Who, by the way, it's not going to be the only time we mention him, is about to play the event of his life at the PGA Professionals Championship this weekend, where the top 20 get into the PGA Championship. So keep an eye out for that.
Of course he is.
Michael Block is in the field and is going to be pursuing another PGA Championship
The
event.
block
But there are
party will
also,
go on for another year, hopefully.
God, I hope not. I can't do it anymore. I really can't. Did you see it? Didn't he like?
Oh,
He's like
come
a
on, man. South OC guy.
dyed the beard, and he
Did
dyed the
he
beard like
actually?
crazy.
Who
I'm pretty
doesn't dye the
sure
beard?
it was dark. It was like a
You,
Carlos
you, you,
Boozer-esque
a
situation.
Patriot Tom Brady apologist, can't complain about anybody dyeing anything.
Hey, he's au natural, baby. That's all natural.
Oh, give me a break.
I
There's
just
been no
I
work done on
can't
that man.
I mean, I can't stand that his son signed up to an event with the name Pootie Cuts Block. That's the one thing I can't
Yeah,
stand.
well, he's a YouTuber too now, Dylan Block, right? Like he does
Yeah.
YouTube content all the time. Um, John Rahm did win in Mexico City, just
Okay.
for the record. I think Bryson DeChambeau WDing was maybe the funniest thing in the world. It was like the most he did WD'd on Sunday with wrist soreness, which was just the purest like, man, like screw this. I don't really want to play this weekend. I'm going to WD with wrist soreness.
Well, I
Uh,
mean, to be fair, I will say the bunker play. I mean, to be fair, the bunkers looked atrocious, but the bunker
yeah,
play looked atrocious as well. Still,
He was the same
so
as last year. Yeah, he was beating up the bunkers last year. Hated it. Did you see him miss like a 3 foot putt that didn't touch the hole? And he's just like, "What the hell? Like, how is that possible?" Like, well, man, you
yeah,
pulled it. I don't know,
I
but
think I mean
maybe that's where his wrist got sore.
Live plays in some great countries. They do not play on some good courses. But to be fair,
Yeah,
like I guess to be a Bryson DeChambeau apologist here, if his wrist really was hurting, that maybe could explain some of the bunker play last week and this week as well. Maybe.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah, there better be an excuse for that because I mean, like, dear God, but
Yeah,
um,
seriously.
maybe that means something. Who knows?
Who knows? You know what I do know is that we've been talking for a long, long time
Dear God,
about a
we
lot of
have.
golf tournaments, and I think it's about time we let the beautiful people who are less listening to this, maybe we let them go.
Uh, yeah, absolutely. If you stuck around with us, you're a real one, and we appreciate you to the nth degree. We will
Yeah,
be back
seriously.
on Wednesday with a little preview. We'll look at the Chevron Championship, huge event for the LPGA, and then we've got the Zurich Classic as well. Um, we will go through maybe some of the major updates, stuff we didn't quite get to today since we had a little bit longer of a live discussion. Um, so, as always, follow us on Twitter at Center Cup Pod, on Instagram and TikTok at centercup.pod, and flood our emails at centercup.pod@yahoo.com. Anybody other than Will's dad
It's
wants to.
pretty dry in there right now. If anybody wants to just slide into our DMs too,
Just say
whatever.
what's
Like
Just
up.
say
we're
hey.
open. Yeah.
And as always, thanks for listening, everyone, and we will see you on Wednesday.